Thank you so much for joining. So again, I came up with a different topic in this video. So in this video, before going into this video, in the previous video, I demonstrated how to create an API and how to deploy that into Azure premises, and then how to secure that API by using app registration. Now in this video, I'm going to show how to create a client application. So that client application, it tries to access to the API, the secured API. So in order to access that API, it needs a access token. So I'll show how to get access token using app registration credentials. Then pass the token, the headers, the request while calling to the API. And after successfully authenticated, then retrieve information from Azure using the API and display it in the UI. So in this video, the client application, I'm using MVC, and the focus is more on how to authenticate, how to create access token, and how to send it to the API call. So in real time, this is pretty much similar scenario. So in most of the all of the applications, your client application need to get access token, and then that access token need to be passed to your API. So this is pretty much similar and very common scenario. So that's why I'm not focusing on how to create a client application and how to write a best code, because the code whatever I have written in the client application, so in few places I simplified. I can make it more a realistic way, like more I can include more configurations into the client application, but I'm not doing that to simplify and to reach the point of getting access token and getting authenticated to the API. So that's why I'm using the simplified code. So let's walk through the code. So this is my MVC application. So in the controllers, I created a controller called RG controller. So I'll start with views. So in the this is the UI page where I'm taking the username and password. So here the username should be the application app registration client ID and the client secret. So so this is not like when the user gets logged in, he will give his username and password. So since we don't have that setup, so I'm directly giving the client ID and the client secret, so that the client ID and client secret can be used to authenticate, get the access token. Then once it get authenticated, it will pull the resource groups from the API, from the Azure tenant, and it's going to display. So then it has a controller called RG controller, resource group controller, and it has two action methods. So this is the get action method, and this is the post action method. So when you load the page for the first time, it's going to display this, and when you click on the submit button, the entered username and password will be this user model will have those values, and those will be send it to the service. This is the service code. So here I hard coded the base. This is the API URL. So like in real life projects, you don't hard code any value. So you will keep these values either from the app settings.json or some other configuration. So in my previous videos, I have shown how to make the settings in the app setting.json. If you want to go through that, please watch that video. But here I just hard coded the value, and then in the controller constructor, I'm initiating the HTTP client. So in the real project, we don't do like this. We will do the dependency injection. Even in my prior videos, I have shown how to do the dependency injection. And then this is the method get RGs asynchronously. So internally, it is calling the method called get access token. So in the get access token, the credentials, whatever we are passing, the client ID and the client secrets. So those will be used in the so the tenant ID. I hard coded the value again, so you can have it in the configuration file. But these credentials will be passed here. So I'm using HTTP client class to generate the token, and this is the base URL while use while generating the token, and then this is the endpoint for the same. Both are same. Just I token endpoint URL. So then the credentials. I initiated I created a credentials parameter by passing those values, and then I encoded them. So here you can see the comments clearly. And after that, I'm preparing the request body. So in the request body, the grant type, so what kind of, it's a client credentials, and the scope. Again, the scope is very important. And finally, I'm calling the method, the HTTP post asynchronously by passing the token endpoint URL and the request content. So this will hold the username and password which we passed. So here in the headers, authorization headers, I'm sending the basic encoded credentials. So then I'm hitting the endpoint so that it will generate the token. And the generated token, we are retrieving it as a string. So the retrieved token will contain multiple parameters. So we need to deserialize, and we need only access token. So I created a token response class here itself. You can keep it in the models. So it has access token parameter, then expiry in token type, and the scope. And here, once you receive the token in the string format, I'm trying to deserialize by using the JSON deserializer by passing the object. So the string, whatever we are passing, that will be deserialized, and the token will be assigned to the access token. And finally, I'm returning this access token. So this whole method is like how to send the parameters so that your valid access token will be retrieved. Okay, so once you get the token, so again here I'm using the HTTP client. So for in the authorization for this HTTP client authorization headers, I'm passing the token as a bearer. So this is a bearer token, and then I'm calling the API. So HTTP client get asynchronously. So this is the endpoint which will give you the resource groups from the API. And then if the response code is successful, then again I'm retrieving the values. Then I'm deserializing the object into list of resource groups so that I can display it in the UI. So I defined a couple of models. So this is credentials. It carries username and password. So then this is to hold the list of source groups, and a cumulative model, user model, which contains credentials and list of resource groups. And I'm using here in the view, and I'm using a simple posting mechanism where it's using HTTP begin form. Run the code. I'll show step-by-step debugging how it's happening and how we are generating the token. And you again, I'm reiterating, my API is in live. So I deployed my API into this location, Now I'm trying to hit by using the client application. So let's run the program and see step by step debugging. Okay, so now let's run the application and see the debug, step by step debug. It's loading the application. This is the application, so I'm not worried about the UI. I made it simple. So right now it's hitting the get method. So where I'm preparing the model, required model, and sending it back to the API. So now I'm going to give the client ID. So it's a password. I made it password so that it's secured. So the client secret. And now I'm hitting the post method where you can see it's going to get RG's asynchronously method by holding the client ID and the client secret I passed from the UI. Now I step into this get asynchronous method, get RG's asynchronously. So internally, again, it's calling the get access token method. So here, let's see what is this. Step into the. Okay, so here I'm preparing the credentials. Then I'm preparing the encoded credentials. I'm encoding the credentials by using base64. And I'm adding the credentials to the authorization headers. And here I'm preparing the request body. And finally, I'm hitting the URL so that I can get the token back. So here, see, its success are, so this will show success. And then here it will retrieve the content. So you can see the token type, bearer, expires, and finally you have the access token. So in this line, I'm going to deserialize. I don't need all of the information like the scope and all. I need just token. So then I'm assigning it to the response token object. And from there, I'm getting the access token. And I'm returning it back to the API so that I can add it to the actual API call headers. So here I'm attaching it to the API call headers, the token. So at right side, you can see. So once I attached it, then I'm making the actual call. So the call has been completed and you can see it succeeded. So then I'm retrieving the information and I'm deserializing the data to the required format and I'm passing it to the UI. So finally, you can see the information .NET updates location test2, test3. These are from the actual Azure itself. So what will happen if I pass wrong credentials? I'm passing 123, 123. So now it's hitting the post method and just get into the details. So it's going to execute the token. So let's step into the token process and whether we'll throw exception. Yeah. So the response status code does not indicate 400. So it's throwing exception when you're generating the token itself. So your code will not go to the API. So let's deploy this client application into Azure and see what will happen. The same, I have shown the detailed steps in the previous sessions how to deploy your code into Azure. So I'm not going to explain in detail, just I'm going to demonstrate how to deploy this into Azure and um, call the application from the Azure and see. So publish, so add a publish profile, Azure. Again, I'm using the app service only, so I can use app service for both client and server applications. So it will ask for the credentials. Azure subscription, .NET East. So I'm going to use the sample. Let's click on create. It's going to create the app service. So now your code is ready to deploy or publish. Just click on publish and it's going to deploy in this location. Your client application is going to deploy in this location. Just hit the publish. It will take a few moments to publish your code. So it's validating, checking if your application will run successfully. So you are publishing the application without bundling the runtime. Framework dependencies checking. That's okay. So if your application will run successfully, the pre-validations it's doing, then it's everything went well, and it's trying to publish the code into the app service. So just and publish the code. Again, this is not my way of doing deployments. So my favorite deployment mechanism is using the Azure CI/CD pipelines. So I'll cover Azure CI/CD pipelines in the next videos, where I focus on creating the pipelines and deploying the code. Finally, the deployment has been completed and it's warming up your site. Maybe it's trying to restart the client application. One more step to access your client application. I'm sorry. The deployment completed successfully, and this is the client application URL. Just click on this link so that it will load the client application. Yep, so this is the client application. So where I deployed my client application in Azure, and this is the URL. So you can click on resource group. Now time to enter the credentials. So I entered application client ID, and this is the secret, and I clicked on go. So my client application, which is deployed in Azure, it's trying to access a web API which has been deployed on Azure, and it successfully authenticated and returned data from the Azure using the API. Wow. So just now we did a complete cycle constructing a web API and deploying into Azure, and constructing a client application and authenticating the API successfully and loading the data. So till now, we completed a complete cycle. So we created API and deployed that into Azure, and we secured it. And after that, we created a client application and we deployed that into Azure. So the client application is retrieving the token and passing it to the API and retrieving data successfully. So in every client server application, so this is the minimum like activity: creating a API, securing it, creating client application, and successfully authenticating it. Thank you so much for watching my videos. Please share your feedback and also suggest the topics. I'm going to explore more options, and I'm going to publish more interesting videos in the near future. So sit tight and watch for the updates from my YouTube channel on the Facebook. So thank you so much once again. Happy coding.